she said!
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. We made it. We made it. We're so excited. We got it. We got the big screen on. Finally got a couple missing pieces, and then we screwed up Ron's screen resolution.
I'll be okay. Oh my gosh. See, that's what I'm talking about.
It's horrible. Fix it. Fix it. You like
I'll
zoom
fix
out
it.
or something? I don't know.
Just keep going. I'll fix it.
All right. We'll let him figure it out. Okay. So yesterday I kind of felt like it was a slow news day. Like I felt like all the big news, like everybody's like, all right, that was a long weekend of peace in the Middle East. Time to chillax. And so I felt like it was a lot of follow-up stuff. As always in the Trump administration, there's never really a slow day. It just is in relativity. Yesterday, the Daily Mail ran an article. Headline says this: Letitia James' humiliating family secret exposes damaging problem with law enforcement amid fraud case. Now, if you remember, Letitia James just happens to be, the top cop in the state of, oh, hey, look, there's the chats. Good morning, boy pony. There you are. All right, cool. We can see you. Okay, so anyways, Letitia James is the top cop in the state of New York. Now, I imagine in a state with as many people as New York, they're prosecuting a lot of, mortgage fraud, prosecuting a lot of other crimes. I mean, with Donald Trump himself, they prosecuted some bookkeeping crimes, right? So you think these guys take law and order pretty serious.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, a tenant living in the Virginia house at the center of the New York Attorney General Letitia James' federal indictment is a fugitive from justice. The Daily Mail can exclusively reveal. This comes from Emma James, U.S. senior reporter, and Daniel Bates. James has reportedly allowed her grandniece, Nakia Thompson, along with Thompson's 3 children, to live in their 3-bedroom property in Norfolk since 2020. Ms. Thompson was sentenced to probation for misdemeanor conviction for assault and battery and trespassing, and has willfully avoided probation supervision.
Oh.
An absconder is considered a fugitive. Thompson faces arrest if she is located in North Carolina. He said of her crimes of assault and trespass are considered non-extraditable due to their low level. The 36-year-old told a grand jury in June that she had been living rent-free at James's home, now valued at $235,000, since the Attorney General bought it, claiming that James pays for even basic upkeep.
So now she's harboring a fugitive?
Yeah, and paying for the upkeep on the house. It's not like she's not totally aware of what's happening here. James was indicted by a federal grand jury in Virginia on charges of bank fraud and making a false payment to a financial institution in regard to securing a mortgage for her home. So now, if we come here, you can see some of the pictures of Letitia James's grand niece. All right. So, I can't judge too much. It's not like, it's pot calling the kettle black if I'm over here judging someone's looks. Yeah. But nonetheless, this individual obviously is technically still a fugitive, although not extraditable. Here's the house of top cop Letitia James. I know, I'm impressed, I'll tell you that, especially by the peeling paint. As you can see here, maybe Letitia could send over some of that New York money and get the
not quite a brownstone.
Up. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so she's letting her niece stay in the place.
All right.
Here's her arrest record and stuff like that. I just find it really funny, man. What an interesting world we live in.
Well, times are tough.
Yeah. Now, Knick-Knack's crime, grand larceny.
Knick-Knack.
She actually posted that. She shared a post saying that her crime was grand larceny. She also posted a little thing here where she had a fake conversation with Donald Trump, an account pretending to be him. Thompson also made a post, reposted some text which read, "Yeah, I effing up, did some effing up, made up F-like decisions, did some I regret." In a bizarre post, she appears to be having a text conversation with Trump, or an account pretending to be him, who tells her that effing perfect smile is all thanks to me. I know you're welcome.
It's all for the lulz.
It's all for the lulz. It's all for the lulz. For me, it's one of those things where, listen, I have brother, helping him out. He's a fugitive with misdemeanor charges. I mean, listen, as far as family goes and as far as helping a friend out, I got zero beef. Doesn't bother me. It's the government's job to come collect grandbaby niece, right? It's not Letitia James's job. It's just the hypocrisy jumps out at you. You know what I mean? Like, you'd think Letitia James could like make a couple phone calls and make it go away. But instead, no, I'm just going to rent to the fugitive.
Or have some other aunt house the
There's so many ways to do this. Why is it in your name? That's what I don't get. Put it in an LLC. Make it one layer harder to figure out. The thing that shocks me is just how brazen they are about this. That's the true.
They act like it's just normal business.
They act like it's just normal business. Exactly. And even CNN, Anderson Cooper was on with Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey Toobin came up last night in a conversation, which was kind of funny. Someone was like, was it like Jeffrey Toobin type stuff? And I was like, no. Anyways, I can't remember what the actual thing was, but that was the funny part about the conversation. Okay, so this is Anderson Cooper kind of calling a spade here when it comes to this Letitia James mortgage fraud issue. Baby. Well, it was going to be Letitia James. There we go. Oh,
I don't know what that is.
What? Why?
I don't know.
I don't want to do that. Okay. I don't want to do that. Okay. Cancel. All right. We're going to play this. This is CNN talking about the situation.
Is not supposed to work.
Jeff, I mean, according to PolitiFact, the day after she was elected in 2018, Letitia James was asked by a community activist if she was going to sue President Trump. And she replied, quote, "Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally." I mean, that's not a great look for somebody who has just been elected or just been campaigning, who hasn't even looked, I guess, at deeply at any evidence.
Well, that's, we live in a system where attorneys general and district attorneys in the United States, unlike almost any other country, are elected officials, are politicians. So they run for office making political statements. That's how our system works. It's not pretty. I don't think it's a great system, but there's nothing uncommon about it. The other point to make, though, is just because she made inappropriate comments, that doesn't mean she should get indicted for fraud years later. I mean, we're not supposed to live in a system of that kind of tit for tat. Criminal cases are supposed to stand or fall on their own merits.
All right, let's listen.
David, I mean,
live in a system of that kind of tit for tat. Criminal cases are supposed to stand or fall on their own merits.
David, I mean, there's no evidence that Letitia James's indictment stems from some widespread audit of thousands of mortgage apps.
So basically, he's like, you can't look at the person and then find the crime. The crime has to stand on its own. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't indict her for, deprivation of rights or harassing a politician or any number of other political oriented crimes. No, it's mortgage fraud.
I like the reminder of he's going to know my name. It's like, oh, good job. We all know your name now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that wasn't exactly against Trump's objective because, I mean, for going on 40 years, the guy's been saying the same thing. He was asked about this specifically, who's going to fix the country, right? And this is what he said.
That you could do a better job at negotiating an arms control agreement with the Soviets than some of these professionals who've been trying to do it for years.
I didn't say me, Mike. I said somebody has to do it. If it were me, that'd be fine. I could do it. Somebody has to help this country. And if they don't, the country and the world are in big trouble. Because within a short period of time, as sure as we're sitting here, there's not going to be a country and there's not going to be a world.
Whoa.
This guy's been saying the same thing for a while. It's not like he hasn't. Fine, you made me run. He was asked in 1983 by Oprah if he would run. And he's like, nah, I'm not really interested. I have a good life. Yeah. Right. Well, fast forward 30 years. He's like, you guys suck.
Isn't anybody going to do this?
Is anybody going to do this? If I have to? Fine. Yeah.
Fine. I'll pull up my shirt sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there was a, I know which one I closed. Give me just a moment. There was a really significant deal posted by John Solomon at Just the News. So let me pull this article up here real quick. I accidentally closed it.
I was thinking about Letitia James, and someday he's going to know my name because we're going to be all up in him. Are there any other retards out there that want us to know your names?
Are there any other retards? There's a few. Okay, so Just the News posted, Congress collected 30 million lines of phone data in the Trump J6 probe, raising civil liberties concerns. Congressional investigators collected a stunning 30 million lines of phone data mapping contacts between conservatives and the Trump White House in the name of investigating January 6th Capitol breach, a massive dragnet that raises civil liberty concerns. Now, my phone number gets dragged into this. I'm concerned about my civil liberties, right? Civil liberties concerns about the lack of limits in the ability of lawmakers. So this wasn't even just, the DOJ. This was lawmakers to snoop on Americans' private phone calls. The mountainous collection of phone records were revealed to the FBI, led by Chris Wray in late June 2023 by former Rep. Adam Kinzinger. He said the memo says Kinzinger told the FBI that phone data related and collected by former Rep. Dan Denver Riggleman, an ex-Republican who was a staffer on the Capitol Riot Committee and who later helped Hunter Biden's legal team in his effort to cast doubt on the laptop belonging to Joe Biden's son. Interesting. An ex-Republican working on the J6 committee and helping Hunter Biden. Seems very Republican to me. And the FBI memo does not reveal whether the Bureau ever took Kinzinger up on his offer, but it does reveal the sheer magnitude of the phone surveillance project by the Democrats ran by using congressional subpoenas to gather phone records about Americans' contact with the White House. Subpoenas, not warrants. Subpoena's a request. A warrant is a demand.
Order.
Right? They just gave it to them. They could have said, nah, we're not going to answer that subpoena, get a warrant. Right? Nope. They just provided the information. So this obviously led to this was involved with Arctic frost, where 98 different conservative groups were mapped and surveilled. This is an incredible amount of surveillance that they did here, all via phone records. They could create, I've seen heat maps, I've seen like distribution maps, I've seen maps showing the people from January 6th returning home, like all the different spaces. And then of course, I'll never forget a phone conversation I had with a family member who's a police officer. Was talking to his wife. I noticed that his wife had unfriended me, was no longer friends on different social media accounts. Not that I'd had a bunch, and I deleted a lot of people too. So I thought, maybe this was just, I got cleaned house. Well, then later I was talking with her and her husband called her on her phone, put it on speakerphone. Hey, we're friends. And he's like, oh, hey, and basically found out he doesn't call me since I was arrested because you're with the feds. Your ass is grass. And I don't want any association with it. That I told my wife not to call you. It's like, that's why. Yeah. That's why. Right now, those tools that we gave the government to track down Haji terrorists, they used to track down me and, domestic terrorists. Yep. And now they're using those same tools to track down Antifa. And I believe it's gone a step further. I believe when they tracked down conservatives, different agencies worked and did their things. But I think probably they kept their little compartmentalizations, right? The IRS targeted us and maybe the IRS shared information with the FBI, but probably not. They probably just did their thing by themselves, right? DHS put us on their list, did their surveillance thing, but they probably weren't passing stuff to the DOJ unless it maybe was relevant. I don't know. If I met with Enrique Antario
if they thought it was relevant.
Yeah, they might pass it on. But what's going on with the Antifa stuff is they're going hardcore. They're getting into bank accounts, Treasury, all kinds of stuff. So this is Scott Bessent, who's now involved in this. This is the first time the Treasury has actively been involved in one of these things where they're like, here's the trail of dollar bills.
People have a right to free speech. They have a right to organize. They have a right to protest, but they have to do it peacefully. They cannot embrace violence, and we have seen it. We've seen it since the terrible day 2 years ago, the anti-Semitism and the bias that came out after October 7th, 2023. And many of these organizations have been financed by nonprofits, and it's going to stop. And we are going to, as they always say, follow the money. When you see these groups where all the signs match, they have hundreds of the same umbrellas that they're using. After they cause the mayhem, they have the same lasers that they're using to blind our police force. How are they constructed, because this takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of organization, and we are going to do that. We have started to compile lists, put together networks, and there's a long record here. And we don't know how much of the support's coming in from overseas. We don't know how much being supported by U.S. nonprofits, C3s that give money to C4s. But this is mission critical for us now, just as after 9/11 and Osama bin Laden, the ultimate culprit, was captured. We are operationalizing this here at Treasury, and we are going to track down who is responsible for this. So Charlie's death has set this off, and we're determined not only to honor him, but to keep our country safe and to ensure freedom of speech on both sides. That we can't, as conservatives, we can't be afraid to go out and speak. I know people are canceling speeches. They're having to bring down the size of the rallies. President Trump was millimeters away from death, and he was not deterred, and we're not going to be deterred. We believe people have a right to free speech.
Going after
they have a right to organize.
Going after the subversive element in our country that is undermining cohesive society. Thank you. Those are some powerful tools, man. Could you imagine being on their hit list? I can. I know exactly what it was like being on their hit list. This is not going to be fun if you're a passive Antifa supporter, right? You're going to be walking around wondering if you funded something. It's fascinating. Now, Charlie Kirk's death was, they could have assassinated any number of right-wing influencers. I hate to name some, right? But you can, all of them, name all of them, Charlie Kirk accepting. I don't know that you're going to find someone that was more broad in their support amongst conservatives generally. This is someone who gained the respect of a Scott Bessent. This is someone who gained a respect of Kash Patel and gained a respect of all these different people that are in the administration. He was so critical in helping the Trump campaign and the underground effort that he got to meet everyone.
Well, have they figured out who's going to replace him at Turning Point yet?
I think they're just going with the next man up model of everybody pick up the mic and we'll see who goes.
I know.
I don't know that
so that's the thing. That's the thing, though. It's like they don't really have a good replacement because nobody could really replace Charlie Kirk.
So do you remember after he passed away, I can't remember who it was, but he shared the experience about Andrew Breitbart when Andrew Breitbart passed away. And it was like, who's going to pick up the mic? And nobody really knew, but people came out, Clayton and Shapiro and a bunch of people kind of emerged.
Michael Knowles,
a bunch of people kind of emerged from that. Well, it was Charlie Kirk who said, I'll pick up the mic, like actually told somebody that, and was inspired by Andrew Breitbart and picked up the work. And, after he died, that story came out and it was like, he's the one who did it. I believe in 10 years, there'll be someone who will pick up.
Sure.
We'll go, that was the
How come we can't have that today, right now? That's what I'm saying.
Because that's not the way it works, man. It's got to be earned. It can't be given. Right?
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like he's hard to replace.
He's impossible to replace.
Exactly.
Right. But the thing is, and this is that idea when you break the leader, right? The followers shatter into 1,000 pieces, and you might burn off some dross, but the gold is going to stay. That's the thing. When people get involved with MAGA, once America first, always America first, right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the quote battle we are in, and you know where the battle lines are, it's pretty easy to pick your side. Charlie was good at helping people see that the battle wasn't over tax rates. The battle wasn't over rent controls. Those are so downstream of where the actual battle is. The battle is over freedom versus captivity, right? And what form of captivity we're dealing with and undoing that. He understood that. He spoke in Christian terminology. He encouraged young men to work, to do, to live good lives. That is the antithesis of what the people who follow the Antifa thought process believe. It's antithetical, right? Which is why they're making such a huge effort.
The financial backing of these groups, particularly Antifa, is certainly something the administration is looking into aggressively. And the federal government has never really been mobilized or tasked with doing that. So we're kind of kickstarting that into gear. The FBI is working on it alongside the White House's Homeland Security Task Force. We have our intelligence community looking into this as well. And even the Secretary of Treasury is involved with these matters since they are financial in nature. And we will continue to get to the bottom of who is funding these organizations in this organized anarchy against our country and our government. It's a question the American people have been begging the answer for many years, and we're committed to uncovering it. And when we do, I'm sure you'll be one of the first people to know.
So we cover, all these different topics day after day after day. And if they can finish the job, right? If they can actually go after Antifa, get rid of the funding, get rid of the professors, get rid of, the people that push it. And I'm not talking about everybody who's ever attended a No Kings protest or Black Lives rally, right? Like, I do not wish on the American peasant, no matter your political affiliation, the unjustified targeting from the U.S. government. But if you're paying for pallets of bricks and gas masks, if you're organizing these things, if you're a college professor giving extra credit for people to go to quote unquote protests and stuff like that, yeah, don't be surprised if you get a knock at the door. Totally. And being someone who got a knock at the door, don't come to me to cry on my shoulder. You weren't there for me, Republicans or Democrats. Donald Trump was asked about the shutdown and about cutting all of the costs and the furloughs and the layoffs. This is kind of like a big deal. Again, all the different vectors of attack politically that Donald Trump's engaged in, right? The shutdown and the cutting down in size, the federal government, the stuff that's going on regulatory wise in all the departments, but specifically the EPA, which has been a stronghold for environmental leftist thought stuff, right? Their policies, the dismantling of USAID, the lawsuits looking into Act Blue. What else is there? Redoing the way that we do business as far as tariffs and our trade agreements with other countries. He's taking the power base away from the Democrats, right? He's solving the problems that the Democrats have been running on, the inner city crime and all this stuff. It's stunning. And
I think I would say that there's probably still some money out there. What was the gal's name that got $8 billion or something ridiculous?
Stacey Abrams got $2 billion.
Stacey Abrams. How many other Stacey Abrams are there that have billions of dollars sitting in some account somewhere that nobody knows about that they're using now to funnel to all these protests? Because it's just leftover money that they had intended to use for this already.
I'm sure there is money like that, but I know that they're watching it more than they ever did before.
Sure. But once the money left USAID, it's hard to track it.
Oh, yeah. But you still can. Right. Still went wire transfer to wire transfer. So this is Donald Trump being asked about the layoffs during this shutdown and if they're going to be permanent.
Can I put it in plain words for you? And you're a smart guy, so you all understand, but a lot of people don't. The Democrats are getting killed on the shutdown because we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we were opposed to. So we're being able, and they're never going to come back in many cases. So we're being able to do things that we were unable to do before. So we're closing up programs that are Democrat programs that we wanted to close up or that we never wanted to happen. And now we're closing them up. And we're not going to let them come back. The Democrats are getting killed. And we're going to have a list of them on Friday, closing up some of the most egregious, socialist, semi-communist, probably not full communist, we're saving that for New York, but semi-communist programs. And we're closing them up. We're not closing up Republican programs because we think they work. So the Democrats are getting killed, but they're not telling the people about that. I say nobody, well, I haven't said it probably as bluntly as I just said it, but so we are closing up Democrat programs that we think that we disagree with, and they're never going to open again.
Dude, they're never going to open again. That is so unashamed. We're closing Democrat programs. Just sit back for a second. And they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Like this shutdown, there are so many things working in his favor. The fact that he's the president right now, government, like the Loper Bright decision, the executive branch just can't go make up its own rules like it has for 40 years. So when you get rid of these rules, it puts it back on the legislature to reinstitute them. It's not as simple as just a stroke of the pen to bring it back. That's the one unique thing about this moment in time, post the Loper Bright decision, is as he strikes these regulations, the only people who can bring them back now are Congress with a full vote, which they seem to be, they're not good at this stuff. Looking at the chats, Ponyboy early on said good morning. Peasant's Perspective twice said good morning. Shantini, good morning. Carlitos, good morning. 2 weeks with no chemtrails. The shutdown must have cut out the funding. The sky is sunny, beautiful, and clear. He's down in Texas. And Shantini, they sent him to Michigan. Guess the program's not over, just the season's changing. All right, so this is CNN. This is a former, I can't remember, he's a former Republican congressman, and he's talking about the Democrats just don't have a strategy here with this shutdown.
I don't think this is good for the Democrats. I mean, you have Donald Trump negotiating Mideast peace and flying to Egypt to oversee an agreement between Hamas and Israel. And meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is parading around the Senate, trying to stage a photo op. I mean, the split screen between actual governance of the Trump administration and just a Senate Democrats trying to figure out their message, right? Senator Van Hollen pointed out, or he called the expiring Obamacare subsidies a ticking time bomb the Republicans planted. They were introduced in ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, in 2021. I know, I was in Congress. We all voted against it on the Republican side. That was a Democrat budget reconciliation bill. It got to the Senate, and it needed 50 Senate votes. They talked about making it permanent, could not get unified Democratic support to make it permanent. It came up again in the Inflation Reduction Act. They kicked it can down the road. Again, solely Democrats voting in support of this could not get Democrats to agree to make these permanent. And now somehow, years later, it's the Republicans that are the sticking point. You were right in March, sir. Chuck Schumer should just continue to reopen the government. And right now, Donald Trump is having to take tariff revenue to support food stamp and WIC programs. He's reallocating budgets within DOD so that troops are getting paid. He's actually doing work, and Democrats are still figuring out their message.
Dude, how crazy would it be if they just didn't have to open the government back up? They're like, yeah, we got enough tariff revenue. And Congress is like, so no purse strings? It's like, no, I got this. Exactly. No, we're good. We're self-funded.
We got all the programs just the way we like them now.
we got rid of all your programs, and now we got our programs, and we're good. We're funded. This is pretty amazing. Now, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Donald Trump had Scott Adams was being asked about, or it was commenting on this idea that, Democrats believe Donald Trump is this authoritarian dictator and he's, bull in a china shop and world leaders don't respect him, blah, 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 right? So he has this great assessment. And he's like, we're getting ready here in a couple days to have these no kings rallies, right? Mm-hmm. Now, remember, these are no kings just after the king achieved peace in the Middle East. This is at a time when Donald Trump is more powerful and popular on the world stage than he's ever been, including with an entire Arab world that up until 8 minutes ago viewed us as the great Satan. And now they're like, Donald Trump! You know what I mean? Like, completely, you've got from the river to the sea, pro-Palestine Gaza people going, well, thanks for the peace, but okay, now the mask's off. We just want Israel, a Jewish genocide. You know what I mean? Like, they've completely lost the plot. So here is Scott Adams being like, everybody, the Democrats' talking point, the thing that's allegedly sinking in is this Trump's a dictator, and yet he's the man.
I guess we're going to have that No Kings protest on the weekend. So the No Kings is to say that they don't want anybody who's an authoritarian. Do you think that has the same spice and energy now as it did a week ago? Because Trump's, like I said, Trump's strongman authoritarian approach is exactly what got us these good results. So they're going to have a whole demonstration against the thing that we all watched work right in front of our eyes. We all observed it working. And they're going to have a whole demonstration against the thing we all observed working, which is Trump bullying people that needed to be bullied. And so I think the whole No Kings thing, since it doesn't have an objective, they just put it in the category of, see, we're fighting Trump. Can you see? Look how hard we're fighting him. Well, what exactly are you doing?
Flip-flopping
we
around.
had some peaceful protests called No Kings. What exactly is that going to do for anybody? Is that supposed to change Trump's behavior? Because they had a bunch of people marching? Are these people who haven't watched the news lately? They don't know that Trump's doing a good job? What exactly would this accomplish? So that's not going to accomplish anything. It doesn't even have an accomplishment built into it as an objective. I don't believe there's any objective to it, right? They don't say, well, once this no kings thing is done, he'll resign. They're not saying that. Or once we do this no kings thing, that will change some laws. They're not asking to change any laws. What exactly do they want? Literally, this is so obviously just a financial transaction. Clearly, there's a business model. There are people who make money from organizing these things. So the people who make money from organizing them is the reason it's happening. It's not happening because it might work. I don't think there's one Democrat who thinks this is going to work. For what? It's going to work for...
I disagree. We played yesterday 2 different clips of Democrats talking about rising up in the streets. And one of them was the one that we really don't like. Jamie Raskin was like, if we get 2 to 3% of the population, we can have a revolution and overturn the government. That's why it's happening. That's why it's happening. That's why. Because they think that they can get that 2 to 3% tipping over and cause a revolution.
What do you think
That's
the chances of...
By the way, we're running through the color revolution, and it's purple revolution. That's the one. That's what they're calling this one.
I don't even know what that means.
In Ukraine, it was the orange revolution.
I know, but I don't know what that means
the
either.
Color revolution people are the communists in our State Department that overthrow democratically elected governments by staging these little on the ground revolutions using public protesters and civil society.
Okay,
blah,
but
blah, blah.
what do the colors mean?
It's just their pick.
Okay.
Yep. So no kings, purple kings, color purple revolution. It's the whole thing. Anyways, continue here.
What? To change what? So clearly it has no, the Democrat Party is so lost that it looks like they're just sort of the dog getting wagged by the tail. And the tail in this case is whoever makes money organizing these events or whoever pays for them.
Bingo.
So yeah, they're lost. Now, of course, they want to go after the character of Trump. That would be one attack. Do you think that would work when he's the #1 peacemaking president of all time? It doesn't work so well, does it? The whole character thing. They can say we're fighting Trump, but where's the fight? What, marching around? But bunch of senior citizens marching around with signs that somebody gave them. Is that the fight? Good luck.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. There's a protest on the corner over by my house, like every weekend. Every weekend there's like a bunch of No Kings protesters out there.
Yeah.
They're all geriatrics. I mean, it's just nothing but gray hair. It's hilarious. Patagonia coats, gray hair, and a sign that says
they're all
no
boomers.
Yeah, like late boomers too.
Yeah,
like they're not even like just retired boomers. Like it's like some of them are out there with a walker. It's shocking.
Yeah, it's like, where were you guys in the 90s?
Yeah. Yeah. Where were you in the 90s? Yeah, exactly. PB Brown, Utah Scout says, good morning. A very rainy day in Utah. We got clear skies in Texas. We got chemtrails in Michigan, and we got rain in Utah. It's a big country, folks. Fred Rosary Daily, happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. It's awesome. Yeah, I can't believe. Okay, so in 2020, we were watching these protests, and many of them turned into riots.
Oh yeah,
especially late at night. Many of them turned into riots.
I remember a few of them where we played clips, and a couple times, some swear words slipped out of our mouths when we were like, "Whoa,
yeah!" Still make the highlight reels.
Yeah,
and obviously, I went to my protest. And, that changed my life forever. So, you've got here we are in 2025, and the protest game is played out. I do believe that. Like, there's no point anymore. Just showing up in mass to be like, look, we took our time out of our day to come here and show you that we, feel a certain way.
That's why I'm super afraid that there's going to be like another Charlie Kirk type thing happen with these No Kings.
I think it's lost its saber, and it's now in the zeitgeist that they're paid for. Mm-hmm. Even Republicans, if the Republicans were to have some big rally, let's say Republicans were doing this.
And that's why the next Charlie Kirk episodes will be blatant.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying is the crowds they'll say are paid, right? Oh, it's like even the J6. Oh, Trump will just pardon you. You'll do whatever he said, right? It's played out. The big crowd is no longer impressive to grandma anymore, right? Because it's too paid. There's too many of the same people going to the same protest over and over again. There's no accomplishment. You're not asking for anything. We want clean streets. Okay, DC, we gave you clean streets. We want our drug needles back. Who knows what they're asking for? Mm-hmm. So he's right there. The whole thing has kind of played itself out. And you're starting to see the government get involved with these and recognizing that they're extremely nefarious. Within these crowds are people that are communicating with narco-terrorists and whatnot in order to instigate actual violence against ICE officers.
Top of a new hour here as we approach it. Breaking right now, as we just mentioned, narco-terrorists in Mexico are reportedly working in coordination with domestic extremist groups to place bounties worth thousands of dollars on the heads of federal immigration officers in Chicago. That is according to DHS, who are now slamming what they are calling an organized campaign of terror against agents just trying to do their jobs. Tricia McLaughlin from DHS will join us with more on all of that in moments. And as we also mentioned, we're about to hear from President Trump live at the White House.
So now in these protests, they're finding money connections because remember, Scott Bessent's involved. And so now DHS is, oh, hey, this money's coming from foreign. DHS gets involved. And it's like, oh, not only are they funding the protest and all the Facebook ads and stuff like that, but those same channels are also communicating with cells to put hits on the ICE officers that are going to be responding to the protests. Do you see what's happening here? It's unraveling in live time, right on Fox News.
Wow.
That's why I say it's played out. You want 2 to 3% of the population, good luck. You can't pay that 2 or 3%.
So this is what I'm talking about when you have bounties going out. Oh my gosh. You know, how do you stop that?
Well, it would probably involve Abrams tanks heading south.
Trump administration has revoked the visas of at least 50 politicians and government officials in Mexico as part of its crackdown against drug cartels and their suspected political allies. According to Reuters, the politicians and officials are members of the country's ruling Morena party, headed by Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, along with dozens from other parties. Their names haven't been publicly confirmed, but at least 4 officials have acknowledged losing visas. A State Department official did not confirm the report, but said that visas can be revoked for a variety of reasons that violate U.S. law and other activities that run contrary to America's national interest. The official emphasized that visas are a privilege, not a right. Also, the official telling Fox News Digital that the Trump administration has had a good working relationship with the Sheinbaum government and looks forward to continuing to advance its bilateral relationship in support of the America First foreign policy agenda. The Trump administration has taken a zero-tolerance approach to drug trafficking, which is a key presidential campaign promise, and several suspected drug boats on their way to the U.S. have been struck by the U.S. military, many of which were alleged to have come from Venezuela. Last month,
So Venezuela,
Things are getting spicy.
Venezuela and Mexico working together to run drugs, influence politicians, kill ICE officers, and do no Keynes protest. Abrams heading south. Like I said, I don't know the solution. A lot of people really honestly take a good look at Mexico and are like, it's kind of a failed state. You know, it's a narco state. The Sheinbaum, you just got rid of 50 politicians' visas that are connected to the president of Mexico.
Whoa.
Troubles are brewing.
Yeah.
Troubles are brewing. Now, fortunately, we have Milei down in Argentina, Trump up north. So if we just march together, maybe we can meet in the Panama Panama Canal or something. Who knows?
Big trouble in Little Mexico.
Big trouble in South America.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Everybody knows, open secret, right? 2020 election was a little funny. Here's Representative Tom Emmer talking about the election in 2020. And you have to recognize the Democrats and those that are ideologically aligned with them. I almost hate saying the Democrats because it's like, well, that includes grandma and my grandpa who's a lifelong union worker. That's not who I'm talking about.
Well, and you're also cutting out some of the dirtbag Republicans that need to be in there.
Included in it. So I don't even know what to call them anymore, right?
Right.
But the 2020 election, the guys that worked against America's interests, clearly won the election. And here's Representative Tom Emmer kind of pointing out the obvious to everybody. Now, understanding that this is in the zeitgeist and that most people, even Democrats, believe 2020 was a little shady. Like even in the polling, I think they're over 50% like, yeah, I was glad we won. You know, it did look a little weird.
Now we're reliant on China, and it's boxing President Trump.
Yeah, well, where were we? We were trying to fight this. We had Donald J. Trump for 4 years, which gave us a bit of a fighting chance. But then he, an amazing number of voters mysteriously showed up in the 2020 election, and Joe Biden had the next 4 years. And frankly, Joe Biden, Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, this cast of losers that would take a knee for anyone but this country, led us down this road where if we didn't have Donald Trump right now, Maria, I don't know what the future would be. Right now, Donald Trump has credibility with the Chinese. They know when he speaks that he means what he says.
So if it weren't for these, random voters that just showed up, we wouldn't have had Joe Biden anyways, right? They're terrified of the fact that they can't just have voters show up, as exemplified by CNN yesterday when they're talking about the realigning of the congressional districts and how devastating this is for the Democrats. Listen to this. Listen to how many seats the Republicans could pick up. Now, you have to recognize that where we sit today is a direct result of the Department of Agriculture, who was in charge of the 2020 census, did not exclude the illegal immigrants from the census, and there were algorithms that caused funny business. We know this. We've played this on the podcast. There is no doubt from anyone on the left or the right. If anybody says, 2020 census, who cares? They're wrong. Both the left and the right did not like the census for different reasons. But as far as voting goes and allotment of representatives, heavily favored the Democrats. So now redoing the census, whether they do an interim census or they wait till 2030, that's going to be a death blow. Okay. And then on top of that, you've got the fact that now the Republicans are getting involved in redistricting because the Republicans as a whole, as a party under Donald Trump's leadership, have finally realized that it's a zero-sum game. Someone's got to win, right? This is no longer two parties holding hands. This is now a situation where one party was willing to go to the distance to eliminate elements of the other party. Mm-hmm. So now it's a fight for survival. When you look at Operation Arctic Frost, the J6 investigations, the phone investigations, and what it said in that article and what Chuck Grassley said is they were trying to take down the entire Republican apparatus. They were trying to neuter it and make it basically just a couple guys with turtlenecks and sweater vests running with an R behind their name, right? They wanted to completely eliminate it in any kind of a power fashion. So even political players, Republicans that got caught in that dragnet, your Lindsey Grahams, who could have played the fence, all of a sudden are like, ooh, this is a zero-sum game. And a lot of governors are understanding that too, which is why they're putting their states up for redistricting.
Actually represents pretty accurately, mathematically, how the country's divided over the question of the presidency. But if you look at this is what the party pickups would be for congressional districts. Republicans, 5. Missouri, 1. North Carolina, 1. Ohio, 2 or 3. Indiana, 1 or 2. Florida, still discussion down there, but that could be another gold mine for them if they tipped it even further their way. Kansas, 1. New Hampshire, 1. And Nebraska. Democrats, Utah, California, Maryland. Look at this. If you offset California and Texas, Missouri and Utah, North Carolina and Maryland, everything left over is an advantage to the Republicans. And don't forget, the Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans that would represent that population in some way. So if that is gutted, Democrats could lose 19 seats. This would be a huge amount. But this is also a measure of how much the White House is concerned about this, because Donald Trump knows if the Democrats get the House again, there could be new investigations, just like last time. There could be a new impeachment. There could be a lot of impediment to these plans that right now the Republicans in the House and Senate are letting run like a freight train.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying, if they don't cheat, they can't win?
We already knew that.
How the Democrats got to this spot is shocking. And the reason is because they punched above their weight. Nobody wants to be a communist, Ron. Okay? Nobody thinks it's a good idea.
Okay,
I remember one time my brother got called a communist by my grandfather.
Oh.
It was funny, right? He was
it Thanksgiving?
No, he was just being very communist and talking about, socialism and whatever, we should pay for health care. I don't know. And my grandpa called him a communist. And my brother-in-law tells my brother, he goes, that man's old enough to actually know what real communists are. You might listen to him. He's like, he's not saying it lightly. He actually has seen communists in his life. You know what I mean?
And he looks pretty serious.
He looks pretty serious when he's yelling at you, you freaking communist. So anyways, how they punch above their weight. How? Cheating, rigging elections, printing extra ballots, open border immigration. They've punched above their weight. They couldn't convince you, Ron, that it was a good idea to put in rent controls. They couldn't convince you, Ron, that a 70% marginal tax rate was a good idea. They couldn't convince you, Ron, that we didn't need private property. Right?
Even a semi-low information voter like me.
Even a semi-low information voter like Ron couldn't convince you to do it, right? But you know who they can convince? The person who's never had a civics class, a person who doesn't even speak English, a person who's just happy to be here.
A person who's never said the Pledge of Allegiance.
A person who's never said the Pledge of Allegiance, exactly. George Washington who? You know? Exactly. Now, this is endemic. So this is Representative Kristen Robbins. She's a state representative from Minnesota. And this was yesterday, okay? So this is House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee discussion of voter registration. Guys, this is how they're doing it. It's at scale, and it's done in your local county office, right? Now, one of our listeners here, PB Brown, Utah Scouts, I happen to know works with elections in a certain state. Okay. And he, in the last election cycle, had people coming in trying to register without appropriate identification. He told me, this was when I was in prison, he told me he felt like those were feelers. They were kind of testing out the system. Here's why they're testing out the system.
We are still trying to understand if these people, as news reports flag, they admitted in some instances that they were paid by the voter registration. So that brings me to the point of this foundation. Clearly, they hired people as independent contractors. 2 of them were found guilty. This group, I've done a deep dive on their 990s. 99% of their budget comes from state grants. So this is a group that the state is funding and that then went out and did these voter registrations and has you know, they participated. The foundation didn't participate in fraud, but they hired people with state dollars who then used that to create fake voter registrations. We are still trying to understand if these people as
agency, this nonprofit, used state dollars to do voter registration drives, and they were found guilty because they were falsely registering people to vote.
It sounds like we need to rename Antifa. It should be like pro-fascism.
Pro-fascism, yeah. Now, this is Tim Walz, who just yesterday in 2023 signed a bill into law called Licensing for All. So they're giving in Minnesota driver's licenses to everybody. So now the state is funding these voter registration drives, and they're getting 99% of their funding from the state. They're going out and they're doing voter registration, and they're committing crimes in the process. They pled guilty. That's what she's mentioning, right? The people running this thing pled guilty to crimes. They were getting state funding to do this voter registration. And who were they registering people to vote? People that weren't U.S. citizens. Why? Because they could present an ID.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
So we give driver's licenses to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to, which is a photo ID. So if someone comes in, they register, they have the driver's license, but they have an incorrect social or no social or whatever. So then they become incomplete. But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
Anderson?
Well, okay, there's your problem potentially. So thank you.
So just to clarify, someone who is...
Oh, we just solved it. So if they have a license, we don't check citizenship. That's enough. But we give a license to anybody. Yeah, we'll even call them no name.
Okay.
No name vote. Oh yeah. Well, there's your problem. Does anybody else here have common sense? Anybody else? Can I get 50%?
I think the problem is that some people saw it as a solution.
What? What? You mean some of our politicians aren't working in our best interest? What are you talking about, Ron? That's impossible.
It's not a citizen, but presents a driver's license at that point in the process could be permitted to vote.
Madam Chair, at the time of registration, as well as at the time of submitting a ballot, every voter is signing the attestation affirming their eligibility to vote, including that they meet all eligibility requirements. They are a U.S. citizen.
Now, we don't do anything with that information. We still give them a ballot, and we will take it if they present the ID, because there's no mechanism to actually check. It's just, self-reporting.
Right.
Okay. Now, that's in Minnesota. No surprise there. Tim Walz is the governor. We all know it's, gone left forever. It's like on the margin. People think it can turn, probably because there's a lot of blue dog union workers, mining Democrats up in the north part of Minnesota that could turn the state if they would vote Republican. And maybe they will. Who knows? But the problem is maybe they're already the majority, right? How much more can you run up the score? Let's pretend Minnesota is 60% Republican, 40% Democrat. That's a big number to overcome, that 10%. Okay. But what's the scale of the cheating? How many driver's licenses have they issued to people that are non-citizens? How many ballots have they sent? How many of them get returned? Who's tracking that stuff? Nobody is. And it's by design. Like you said, Ron, maybe it's on purpose. Now, it's not just the Democrats. This is why it's so hard to say it this way. The Democrats.
Right.
When I say Democrats, I must be including Liz Cheney. I must be including Adam Kinzinger. I must be including John Bolton, right? Because they're all ideologically fighting against America. But have you ever considered maybe that list might include one of our stalwarts, like, I don't know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Have you considered maybe she's fighting for the Democrats too? I mean, wouldn't she want free and fair elections? I don't know. Something a little fishy going on down in Arkansas.
General Tim Griffin is under growing scrutiny after filing charges against decorated Army veteran Colonel Conrad Reynolds, the man who led Independence County's vote to return to hand-counted paper ballots. National conservative leaders say it looks like GOP lawfare inside a red state. Reynolds.
So what's going on here is this gentleman was instrumental. He was a county elected worker, whatever, and he was instrumental in getting Independence County, Missouri. We're familiar with Independence, right? Zion. Independence County, Missouri, to do hand-counted ballots. No more machines, paper ballots only. Arkansas came after these guys hardcore. I said Missouri. It's not Missouri. It's Independence, Arkansas. Arkansas is arraigning him this morning for election crimes.
For what?
No crimes, Ron. No crimes. This is lawfare. This is lawfare, okay? This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas, a deep red state, and Mike Lindell's been calling the alarm here. They will not get rid of the machines. Will not get rid of the machines.
It's expected to report to the Independence County Courthouse tomorrow morning for booking. Prosecutors accuse him of violating, quote, exit polling laws, a rarely enforced misdemeanor, after organizing a ballot referendum that overwhelmingly passed, with 63% of voters choosing paper ballots over machines. Colonel Reynolds, soon to be inducted into the Arkansas Military Veterans Hall of Fame, has been a national leader in election reform. He has worked closely with members of President Trump's team in Washington, D.C. on election security and national defense vulnerabilities in voting systems. Reynolds continues to hold a top-secret security clearance, which includes routine polygraph examinations. Reynolds says that the prosecution is politically motivated and the, quote, establishment is trying to stop the paper ballot movement before it spreads to other counties. They're terrified of losing control of the election system, end quote. The controversy is raising a broader question inside Arkansas. Why would a Republican administration led by Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders oppose the very hand-counted paper ballot system that grassroots conservatives overwhelmingly supported? State officials have not publicly responded. The case has drawn sharp national criticism. Mike Lindell said, "Please share. Colonel Reynolds is a hero and is guilty of trying to save our country and get to paper ballots hand counted. General Michael Flynn wrote on X, "This is GOP lawfare and it must end. Sarah Huckabee, please step in and stop this ridiculous persecution." Attorney Sidney Powell posted, "What the hell? Sarah Huckabee, this prosecution is ridiculous and obviously lawfare." Attorney General Tim Griffin, "Exit polling is not election engineering. Were it anyone other than an advocate for hand-counted ballots?"
Well, it is election engineering, because if your exit polling shows it's 60% support for something and your voting machines are kicking out a 40% loss and they flip the votes, yeah, you engineered the election to the correct result.
That's a pretty simple
by doing the exit polling. So he's being punished for doing exit polling because it exposed the algorithmic fraud?
Yeah, it's a simple audit.
Yes.
Ballots, you would have ignored it. Political strategist Roger Stone shared a video captioned, quote, "Top MAGA leaders are asking Governor Sarah Huckabee why Arkansas indicted Colonel Conrad Reynolds, a proponent of paper ballots." Reynolds' attorney Chris Corbett calls the prosecution political payback. He said, quote, "It's lawfare, targeting a decorated Army veteran because he's been effective. Colonel Reynolds has worked tirelessly to strengthen election security in Arkansas and across the nation, and now he's being punished for it," end quote. Reynolds will appear tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the Independence Courthouse in Batesville, Arkansas, to be booked, fingerprinted, and photographed, an image that his supporters say will symbolize courage in the growing national paper ballot movement.
We got to take his picture and his fingerprints because we have no idea who he is.
Yeah, just before he goes into the Hall of Fame for military service. Like, So who's on our team, Ron? I thought Sarah Huckabee Sanders was a stalwart.
Well, that was what I was just going to ask you. Has there been any kind of a statement from her?
No.
Why not? She needs to open up.
Years ago,
explain herself.
Years ago, someone described to me, they said the Republicans and the Democrats are two gangs, but they've working together seamlessly. And they have their map and they know exactly whose territory is what. This state will always be red. Do whatever you want. In fact, get on board with Obamacare, pitch it to your, just make it coming from the red. Sure. This state, right, this part of the state, these congressional districts, it's literally mapped out. You've got red, blue, and then the purple ones are like, this is where the fighting will be. This is where, the venues are nice and the consultants can make a lot of money packing people in for a debate. So, this little district is going to be competitive. Right. But not that little district out in the hinterlands. Just do whatever with that one.
This district over here is like game 7. This is where we're going to make all of our money.
Yeah, exactly. There was the assessment that you only need 8 counties in the United States to flip the election because all the territories are spoken for, but the whole battle is being fought in 8 counties.
And then how many billions of dollars to spend in those counties on elections?
On those elections, half of it, the other half of it goes out to convince the rest of the world that they're already right. Right? That your side's already winning. So just show up and vote. Washington goes blue, Idaho goes red. You know what I mean? Like, who knows margins, whatever. But in these 8 counties, Maricopa, probably Chicago, Detroit, like these, Fulton County, Georgia, clearly is one of these counties, right? These a county up in Pennsylvania, these 8 counties are where the election is actually.
Let's talk about paper ballots and hand counting for 2 seconds. What do you think about that?
I think it's important. I don't understand why we're not doing it.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think everybody thinks that way. And the only people who don't think that way are the people, well, paper counting's hard. Well, then how does France pull it off? Everybody pulls it off. This is ridiculous.
To those people that say that this is something that is hard, that couldn't be pulled off, well, A, we did it for decades.
Yeah.
B, when you count locally, you're only counting
1,500 ballots.
Yeah,
that's the thing. These election precincts only have 1,500 registered voters. Like, it's in your elementary school. Like, how hard is it to get to elementary school? You're not counting millions of votes.
You probably know half the names of all the people on the ballot.
In fact, that's how they caught the most election fraud.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, the way the machine got, the way we know for a fact, right? There was a district that had an election for town mayor, and they take turns being mayor.
Yeah.
They take turns. Okay? So they already knew who was going to vote for this person. And they lost. And they went back through, and they only had to audit 12 votes, Ron.
Let's do a third recount.
They had 12 votes to audit. And you know what was horrible?
Oh, man.
It went through the court system, and the court upheld the loss.
Oh, what? You can't make these stories up.
You can't. You cannot make these stories up. It was this little town. She's like, Grandma's like, I thought it was my turn to be mayor. I didn't. They only put their name on the back.
Jimmy, who did you vote for, Jimmy?
Exactly. And that's, Matt Perino, OAN came off cable news because he ran ballots for the machine and it flipped them in real time right there on live TV. The next day they lost their contract. The next day. It's like, what? Arkansas is suing a Republican for doing exit polling, showing 60% support for paper ballots. Can't have that.
Yeah,
you can't be asking
I think
people like
until we get back to paper ballots, hand counting, we really won't have an election that anybody can have confidence in.
We won't have an election anybody can have confidence in, and we are going to live in a scary world because this pendulum is going to swing faster and faster, and it's going to cut like a very sharp blade.
I love the way the No Kings folks are framing it, because it is really kind of creating that link back to sort of the historical, connection. But, to Michael's point about, the moral cowardice, we shortchange ourselves when it comes to our elected officials in that regard, because we're like, well, immediately people think morality, religious, and all of that. No, morality is a code of honor. It's how you will behave. It's how you honor the system. When you take an oath of office, as many of us have, you're making a commitment, a very personal commitment to a community of people, if you're a local representative, to a state, if you're a governor, and to a country, if you're president. And everybody in between who holds, to Michael's point, who holds their hands up, Sarah, really have to understand that moral connection between the oath and their service. And so when you have the roguish, bad, illiberal behavior of a president like we have with Donald Trump.
Roguish, don't miss it, America. Don't miss it.
Right?
Don't miss it.
Why the hell are you sitting on your behind excusing it? Look, I don't understand, and maybe you have a little bit more insight, and I get the piece about the threats to family, but I would think as members of Congress, if you know that that's coming down the pike, that you would be proactive about that and write the law that basically says, okay, y'all come after us, be ready, because we got something for you.
Well, you would think that that would be the case, but unfortunately, it seems like most of these lawmakers forget that there will come a day where Trump will no longer be in power, but everything that they've done to kind of go along with all of these abuses of power, that dishonor will remain. And so that will be their legacy. And I wish that they would take that into account. I understand that there are so many factors, and I sympathize with them about the concerns for safety. It's something that I had to think about when I decided to
And here you
Trump
are.
World.
That's the thing. Like, you have more courage than
But it's all the women. Think about all the
young women.
The young women who came out of that administration.
Matthews had more courage than every high-ranking man in that White House.
Absolutely.
Every senior Republican member of Congress. You did put your life on the line.
Elizabeth Newman is another one. Yep.
Elizabeth, you could have said nothing. And I don't.
Okay, so basically what they're saying there is wait till power shifts back because we're coming for you.
Okay.
Every time. These people are they're disgusting. I mean, again, it's the ultimate projection. Miles Taylor is the guy who wrote the book Anonymous, right? This was some insider book from the Trump first term, and totally ridiculous. Like the book, nothing really revelatory. And turns out he's like a low-level staffer on his way out the door, putting these anonymous postings in the newspaper, ends up writing the book. And he says Trump is inching closer to illegally invoking the Insurrection Act. If there's ever a moment for American governors, especially in blue states, to hold an emergency summit, it's now. These are the neo-Confederates. These are the people who want to hold on to power for power's sake, that don't have any allegiance to the streets. They don't care if there's gunshots outside of your house. Pay your taxes, get your EBT card, stay on the plantation. Right?
He's getting ready to commit a felony. I can feel it.
And now they want all these people, and I'm literally saying this, on the plantation, right? All these people that are dependent on the Democrat programs. Rise up! Rise up!
How obsessed is Trump with Chicago, in part because it is President Obama's hometown?
I think Matthew. I mean, look, but you also can't overstate how much his lieutenants, like Stephen Miller and others, are aware of Chicago's history. Now Donald Trump isn't a student of history let alone has ever even cracked a history book open. But the people around him know that Chicago's got a history of protest. Chicago has a history of riots, and they're looking for cities where they can create unrest. Now, Nicole, I'll go all the way back to when I first came forward after the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, and unmasked myself. One of the first things I talked about is Donald Trump's reference to this thing he called at the time his magic.
You didn't unmask yourself. You got caught because you acted like you were some top dog in the White House.
Authorities. That's how he described the Insurrection Act. Why did I choose that to be the first thing I sounded the alarm about to the public when I came forward? Because it was the thing I was most worried about him doing. That's what he described the Insurrection Act as, his magical authorities. He wanted us to use it at the border. We said it wasn't legal. He wanted people like Mark Esper to use it against protesters in 2020. They told him it wasn't legal. Now he's got those people out of his administration. Now he's got people who are willing to let him use it without cause in major cities. And this is why, Nicole, I think people like J.B. Pritzker and Governor Newsom need to call an urgent meeting of America's governors. Maybe it's just the blue state governors, but this is it. This is the moment all the governors need to get together and say, we should talk about mutual aid pacts and joint boycotts and ways to get leverage over the federal government, because the Trump administration is coming for them. This is
in a proud South Carolinian condition. Illinois might be the first state to secede from the nation a second time. These neo-Confederates, call a convention of the states, we've got to separate. Hey, man, if I didn't hate you guys, I'd almost be on your side. You know what I mean? I like states' rights too, but I don't like your states' rights. That's one of the things I've learned. I don't really trust anybody with power, right or left. Apparently, I thought Arkansas would be a good state with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Apparently, those elections are in the bag. So, don't move there if you don't want to be on the wrong side of the Huckabee family. When I was in prison...
on today's installment
of when I was in prison. When I was in prison, we had this guy. Well, his name was, Rex. So his name was Rex. That was his real name. Okay. He was an older guy. He's probably mid-60s, something like that. He's one of those guys that kind of stays forever young, even though he's getting pretty old. He'd been in and out of prison quite a bit. But we sat in the bullpen together a lot. The bullpen was the holding cage that we had down in facilities. We'd get locked in pretty frequently. Okay. So we were sitting down in the bullpen one day, and he's telling me about his life. And he's like, I was raised by this family, and my uncle this, and someone's rich and land. And, they kind of had this family thing going on. Well, part of his family had a cash flow source that was involved with taking baggies full of stuff and delivering them from one place to another, right? Okay. Baggies full of white powder. Okay. So he was involved in this for years. And we're talking like 70s, early 80s, that kind of thing. Let's put it this way. He did blow and some hookers with Bill Clinton's brother.
Oh, so like Barry Seal's cousin.
Yes, he's taking pickups off the tarmac where Barry Seal's dropping. He's in that world. Okay. 100% Bill Clinton had mistresses. 100% Bill Clinton had an actual 5 o'clock news reporter that he was having an ongoing affair with, and the woman was totally everybody was just okay with it. You know what I mean? It's just what it was. And one day he was, at this house. This is when he was first coming up in the business, and he was getting his first drop assignment. And he was at this house, and they're sitting in the front room, and all of a sudden a sheriff's car pulls up in the driveway. And this is like Smokey and the Bandits, road pulls up on the driveway, and he's like, "Oh, we gotta run!" He's like, "We gotta run for the hills." And the guy's like, "Calm down, it's okay." They walk out. Deputy gets out, walks over, pops the trunk, pop the trunk, pull the duffel bags out of the trunk, The deputy was dropping the colt.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't the deputy, it was a state trooper. It wasn't the sheriffs, it was state troopers. It was the state troopers in Arkansas that were corrupt under the Clinton administration back in the day. So my point in saying that is, it's all corrupt, bro. There's no end to the depravity when you have power and can cover up your own crimes. There's just no end to the depravity, no doubt about that.
Jeez.
Rex was freaking hilarious. He had so many funny prison stories. He'd been in and out 5 times. At one point, he'd been denied bond, and you're a huge risk and threat to society, blah, blah, blah. And this is not even that long ago, 10 years. And he was being transferred from one federal prison to another federal prison. or no, I think he was like going from the states to the Fed. That's what it was. He's being transferred from the state prison to the Fed prison. So keep in mind, threat to society, can't be out, risk to everything, blah, blah, blah. When he goes to get transferred, they pull him in, they put him in prison street clothes, which is like jeans and a shirt and a jacket, right? And then they give him a bus ticket and $20. And they're like, you need to get on this bus and go to Kentucky and then go check in at the prison there. And there's like a layover, like he had to spend a night in some town. And there's a strip club right where the bus stop is. And they do this all the time. So inmates will come in their prison clothes, go into the strip club, and the bartender's like, you only have $20, right? He's like, yeah, prison specials over there. So you go over there and get your chicken wings, your soda, and a lap dance for $20. No way. Dead serious. And he's a full-on inmate. He's like, a month ago I was a threat to society. They wouldn't let me out. And then they give me a bus ticket and send me to interstate lines. And he's like, do you know how hard it was for me not to run? He's like, if it weren't for the lap dance, I probably would have.
That's how they kept him.
That's how they kept him. Well, I mean, you know, the strip club had just figured out these guys only have $20 and come up with the inmate special. You know what I mean? That's your VIP corner. You'll get the lap dance and Coke. I'm telling you, man. Truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, truth is stranger than fiction.
Sounds like a clip that needs to be in a movie.
Yeah, dude. I wake up every day grateful to God above and Donald Trump that I am free. Okay? That was a weird world. All right, so Donald Trump was asking, there's been this controversy, okay? So a bunch of news channels have not agreed to sign on to some pledge with the Pentagon that they won't cover certain things. The Pentagon's changing its media rules. Okay. And one of those things is the media is not allowed to just walk around in the Pentagon. Apparently they were doing this. In areas that were closed to top secret only, a press pass could get you in. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Like literally, you know, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have the clearance to go there. I'm press. Press badge on. On in.
Right on through.
So apparently this was going on. So Hexus like, no, we're changing.
Well, I very much appreciate the question because it was interesting to watch. We had a chance to go along on the historic trip of Middle East peace, which our generation of veterans never dreamed would be possible. So you would think that the Pentagon press corps of all press corps would be front and center across the board on wanting to give credit to the president for forging this kind of peace, and instead what they want to talk about is a policy about them, which simply says maybe the policy should look like the White House or other military installations where you have to wear a badge that identifies that you're press, or you can't just roam anywhere you want. It used to be, Mr. President, the press could go anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the Pentagon, the most classified area in the world. Or also that if they sign on to the credentialing, they're not going to try to get soldiers to break the law by giving them classified information. So it's common sense stuff, Mr. President. We're trying to make sure national security is respected, and we're proud of the policy. Well, I very much appreciate the question.
It makes sense that you can't go into the top secret confidential areas. And, you know, apparently they've had a problem with me. Apparently they've had a pretty large problem with media people having, you know, insider trading information because, oh, that's interesting. So that contract's going where? All right. Yeah, stockbroker. Put it all on Halliburton. You know what I mean? Like that was happening. On top of that, and as well as, you know, influencing, like media person comes in and goes, hey, my friend Watching Chong would like to go dinner with you tonight. You know, that kind of thing. So this is pretty dramatic because the Pentagon overspends. Would you agree, Ron? Maybe like one of the black holes of our budget is the Pentagon? You know,
$200 hammers and that kind of thing.
Oh, it's worse than that. Listen to this spec here. They are retooling the way they supply the military. And here's a small presentation on some of the most dramatic things at a small scale that cost us millions, if not billions of dollars.
Is the thing for a Black Hawk's external fuel tank. They are built cheap, so they break often. The vendor charges over $14,000 for replacement. Our team can do it better. They 3D scanned the part, reverse engineered it, printed prototypes, and conducted structural validation in only 43 days. The part I'm holding is their Ford prototype. Now we can manufacture this part for just over $3,000. Ours is 300% stronger and 78% cheaper. And we can ramp up supply in less than 6 days. Let me show you another example. This screen control knob lets Black Hawk pilots scroll through aircraft data. It is really small. We break around 4 of these every single month. When this little tiny thing breaks, the whole aircraft is grounded. The vendor won't produce replacements. So instead, we have to turn in this entire screen assembly and pay $47,000 for a replacement. $47,000 to replace this assembly when we can make this knob for $15. That is a 313,000% markup, and we're spending around $188,000 every month for what we could solve for $60.
So yeah, it's, you know, it's golden toilets and $10,000 hammocks, but it's also $14,000 nose cones for the fueling system, $47,000 plastic knobs for $6.
Wow.
$13.
Oh my gosh.
I'm proud of our president, and I'm proud of Pete Hegseth for taking a look at that. It's one thing.
And especially when it's on a device that's just meant to blow up.
It's one thing to be like, hey, we have oversupply or top budget. It's another thing to pay $47,000 for a control knob that you can do for a couple bucks. 3D printing has enabled an entire new world of this, right? What's happening over in Ukraine is it's a lot of 3D printing of these drones. They're not doing man-to-man fighting. They're doing drone fighting right now. Okay. So the world's changing. Pentagon's got to adapt. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. If they just start doing those little nose coney things and those knobs, I mean, that's going to add up to millions and millions of dollars. That's where you can, you know, what's this? I can vouch for that knob problem. It's ridiculous.
The one above that.
Yeah. I can't get over the $20 for breasts and wings. KFC can't beat that. What? What's that?
I don't know. That sounds funny.
Okay. Anyways, big deal. Now, the United States has
That's the strip club.
Oh, the strip club. For breasts and wings. KFC is not going to beat that. That's a nice Tony Boy, you hit that right. Yeah, it's $20 for breasts and wings. The breast got a little jiggle.
Sometimes it's not all white meat.
You are in the South. I mean, you get what you get. Okay.
Maybe a little crusty.
We gotta stop. Okay, so we have everything we need in this country to survive. Not only can we now do 3D printing, we should be able to do our own supply chain. Military equipment, it's insane that we have to go overseas, but even what's more insane is when we end up buying energy from outside of the country. Mike Flynn talked about how big a problem for this is, but at the same time, we have all the solutions. We don't have to go anywhere for energy. We can be an energy provider.
I read a report this morning about shale gas and oil and other commodities that comes out of shale, right? And about a 10-page report, and essentially the gist of the whole thing is about this is energy capabilities here in the United States of America. The gist is that we are at risk here in the United States of America if we don't start to become far more proactive elsewhere in our country, either the contiguous waters that we have or places where we know there are pockets of energy that we can continue to discover, right? It's not just Texas. It's not just, off the coast of wherever, or California. So the president is going to have a massive America First energy summit. I read a report this morning about shale.
Mike wants Donald Trump to have an America First and energy summit, whereas Miles Taylor wants the Democrats to have a Democrat summit for succession. Two different worlds here. One's worrying about how to power things up. The other one's worrying about how to break things down. You know who who do you think is the most effective member of Trump's cabinet right now?
Probably. What's that gentleman's name? Damn it. Steve Miller. Steve
Miller's good. He's pretty effective. Kristi Noem's pretty good. I mean, she's really changed the entire shape of DHS. Like it's doing something.
Yeah,
now.
I probably wouldn't have picked her name. I just wouldn't have thought of it.
Let's see who else. Carolyn Leavitt, press secretary. She's pretty good. Yeah, she's pretty good. Trump's had some good press secretaries, honestly. Let's see who else.
I mean, Kash Patel's not doing as much as I was.
He's not even. He's not even on the list. No.
And Dan Bongino also.
And Pam Bondi definitely not on the list.
So I don't know, who is it?
What about Lee Zeldin? EPA?
I don't know.
Let's find out.
Basically, half of the president's deregulation agenda.
Wow.
And we're talking about trillions of dollars of deregulation. In 1 year, we will do more deregulation at the Trump EPA than entire federal governments have done across all federal agencies across entire presidencies. Just one of the proposed deregulations alone, the proposed rescission of the 2009 Obama endangerment finding, if finalized, is the largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States. But while we're doing that, I'll tell you the best announcements that we put out on the 100th day of President Trump's term in office, our top 100 environmental accomplishments from those first 100 days. On the 200th day of President Trump's term in office, our next top 100 environmental accomplishments from those next 100 days. And we're getting people back in the office. We're right-sizing the agency. We're going through reorganization. When I came in, there was a little over 16,000 employees. We're going down to just over 12,000. And that reduction, we will actually get more done.
Of course you will.
With just over 12,000 than the Biden EPA did with just over 16,000. It's about priorities.
Well, it's also, you get rid of the...
I'd say Lee Zeldin is the most effective member in Trump's cabinet.
I would like to see a list of what was the Obama thing he mentioned. I don't know.
The Finding of Endangerment Act.
Yeah.
The Finding of Endangerment Act basically says that's dangerous. We can regulate it.
Okay.
Because it's in the public interest.
All right.
That's what the endangerment finding is. My understanding of it.
All right.
Is literally they can point at something and, find an endangerment. And also they can point at something and say, you need to pay for studies to tell us if that's dangerous, if that's environmentally whatever. Big deal. Yeah, Lee Zeldin, kind of a sleeper. Well, when he comes out, he's all exciting about recovering money and slashing regulation. But Ron, you're a civil engineer. How does the EPA affect things?
Well, it affects things greatly. And what I was just going to say is I could get real excited if I saw a list of what they were looking at doing. I could get real excited.
Well, maybe tomorrow we'll have a list.
EPA affects everything that I do in permitting. It is a nightmare.
Some of the things they're doing are potentially transformational, right? Just like some of the, if you go back to someone who was building houses in the 1970s and 80s, and then fast forward to today and ask them what's changed. And the answer is everything. But
I can tell you right now.
Everything but the hammer has changed.
There are wetlands in America that are worth saving, but there are some mud puddles here in Washington State that they call wetlands that turn housing very, 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 very expensive in a state where they constantly are talking about affordable housing. They constantly make it more expensive with EPA rules.
Yeah, like when Grandma's Wetland is a navigable waterway.
Yeah.
You're like, well, how does that connect? Well, all water is navigable. So is my faucet. Well, potentially if we find an endangerment finding.
Exactly.
Greg Gutfeld said this: the Democrats, they got nothing left. They're barking, they're screaming, but most of America is not listening.
It's pretty obvious. The politicians that are saying authoritarian, it's a surrender. This is not real. They know it's not real. They have nothing left. This is like a guy on his sofa, watched his team lose and just throwing the beer can at the TV. No one on the other side of the screen can feel it, but it's your way of getting it out. Nothing sticks anymore. But do you honestly think when they call somebody an authoritarian, it sticks? Nobody is it's white noise. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. You keep talking. It's pretty obvious. The politicians that are saying authoritarian.
Because, you keep talking and stealing elections. That's what I hear. So yes, you guys are intellectually. You can't even make an argument. You can't even present a coherent ideology. You're inconsistent left and right. But damn, you're good at stealing elections.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the problem. It's not because these people aren't defeated. It's not because they can't be defeated. It's because they have some levers and they have some power, and it comes through that ballot box, which is why we have to take things like what's going on in Minnesota so seriously with the voter ID, which is why we've got to get to the bottom of what happened in 2024, 2022, 2024.
And right? Recently in Arkansas,
we need to figure out why it is you're even going at. What is the point of misdemeanor charges for that guy? Meanwhile, later in the week, he's going to go get indicted to the Military Hall of Fame. Okay. Again, self-determination. Is that something? Can a county not come together and decide they want to use paper ballots? Right? Can't they self-determine? I don't know. especially when you have the presidents being like, get rid of the machines. Still uncertain about this new Liberty Voting Company that bought out Dominion. Totally uncertain what's going on there. We're dismantling a few machines.
I don't think
Is that to replace them with better ones?
I think I'm confident that what they're doing.
I'm fairly confident the Huckabee Sanders mafia is getting a hold of these machines.
Oh, yeah.
Right. A Republican election worker is now taking over the company. Is he going to be indicted? Or are they just indicting the guy that would want you not to even have machines at all? Just saying. All right. Donald Trump posted this. He says, I believe that China is purposely not buying our soybeans. Stop growing soybeans, America! And causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economically hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. At least he said it. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oil ourselves. We don't need to purchase it from China. That's very true. I mean, if we're building, if we're growing the soybeans here, you can sell there. Now, in the book Atlas Shrugged, the destruction of the farms came at the hands of the soybean, right? Some ladies like, I want to grow soybean instead of wheat. It's universally good. And then they end up missing a harvest and everything falls apart because soybeans suck. I remember on The Office, Daryl, the black character, right? He's like, turn 34 and find out I have a soybean allergy. And he's like, who develops a soybean allergy at 34? And why the hell do they put soybeans in everything? No soy. I'm anti-soy. Okay. Steve Bannon says this is the age of Trump. It really is. You go back to the beginning of the show, you watch that clip. Trump said, look, if someone doesn't fix things, I'm going to have to fix them. From peace deals in the Middle East, restructuring the United States government, restructuring the entire world trade is all at the hands of Trump right now. He has changed everything.
Like I said, even with his imperfections and even maybe some of the policies you're not crazy about or some of the things you think he's forgetting, if we didn't have Trump, we wouldn't have a country. That's why I say he's in the same level as Lincoln and General Washington, because he is. This is the age of Trump. This is the age of Trump. And if you didn't have a Trump, we'd be looking into the abyss. Like I said, even with his imperfections and even maybe some of the policies,
Trump would be looking into the abyss. You guys, this has been a great show. If you enjoyed it, if you laughed, if you were informed, please repost the show on Rumble, retweet it, share it out onto whatever social media platforms, and even better, call a friend and recommend it. That's the best way to gain listeners, make a direct connection with another peasant. Tell them that, hey, there's a peasant out there broadcasting every morning at 6:30 a.m. live, and you can listen to the replay. Please share the show. We grow because of you. All right, guys, that's it for our public side of the show today. We are going to be heading over to the private and putting in some minutes there because we've given a couple shows without private because we've been kind of mobile and whatnot. So we hope to enjoy you over there on private, and we look forward to seeing those of you that are not joining us tomorrow. Bye.